everyone. Welcome to the voboss podcast and the Boss Money Talk series. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza, and I am so happy to be here again with our resident money gal, Danielle Famble. Hey, Danielle.
Hey, Ann.
How are you?
Glad to be back. I'm good. How are you?
I am good. You know, it's been a busy week of auditioning, coaching, working, submitting auditions, and I happened to reach out to my agent, and it made me think about our series about money, and I thought it would be great to talk about the whole agent aspect, managers, pay-to-plays, and about financials when we work with said companies, people, and really to kind of, I don't know, maybe I think there's a lot of myths out there for people that are just getting into the industry, or even people who are in the industry. They have a lot of beliefs about managers and pay to plays and should I, shouldn't I, you know, what's fair, what's not fair.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be a great time to talk about that today.
Yeah, that's actually really important because it's, these agents and managers or pay-to-plays, they're all businesses, right? So they are working within the business model that they have set up for themselves. And businesses have costs. And so to work with a business, there is a cost there. And you, as the VO boss running your own business, you have to think about the cost that you would be paying, the business expenses you'd be paying for having these relationships. So, yeah, it's really important.
Let's start with, let's say somebody's just getting into the industry. And I know a lot of myths about people that just get into the industry. They believe that they need to be able to get an agent right away. And so I think we can start there to dispel some of those myths. And by the way, I will say myself personally, I was working full time in the industry for about 4 years before I got my first agent.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Mostly because I was doing a lot of non-broadcast work. And so agents, they are concerned, but they're a business, as we were just discussing, right? And businesses are in business to make money. And so if we think about an agent, where is the money, right, for the agent? How does the agent make money? Well, they get a percentage, right, of the jobs that they cast and opportunities that they send to us. And if we book that job because they provided us with that opportunity and negotiated on our behalf, they then get a certain percentage of that money. And their business model, like any business, right? We want to remain in business. So it behooves them to make money, right? To get bookings and to get jobs. And so I guess, Danielle, first of all, well, let me ask you, I mean, in dispelling the myth, I mean, did you get an agent right away when you first got into the business, or what was your entrance into the business?
So my entrance, I actually came from a musical theater background, and I had representation sending me out on auditions for shows, for theater shows. And that person also did rep people who were doing voiceover, who were doing on camera. So I basically kind of moved within that organization from being on stage to being behind the microphone. So in that respect, I did start out with representation and then actually moved to a different agent who specialized specifically, in voiceover. So that was my trajectory. But to your point, and I think this is actually really important, depending on what you're wanting to do, like what genres that you are going into and really like putting your focus in, you may or may not need an agent, especially like with non-broadcast, for example.
Exactly.
You can get a lot of that work on your own with your own marketing and things like that. So you may not need an agent, and there may not be agents who are really focusing in that specific niche to go to and work with them. So I think the question then becomes for the individual VO boss, what is your business model? Are you wanting to do more commercials? Are you wanting to do non-broadcast? Are you wanting to do animation? Really depending on what genres you're really targeting depends on if you need or it would work best for you to have an agent or representation. I think a lot of people, when you hear that they want to work with an agent, it's probably because they want to do commercials mostly,
or animation. Exactly. And I'm always stressing to my students that are just coming to me, that are new to the industry, that, in reality, I mean, you don't need an agent if you're not getting into broadcast right away. I mean, you can acquire an agent later on, or, at a certain point. And most agents, I would say, are only really concerned with broadcast. Why? Because they get paid more.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, right?
Follow
it's
the
money. Because broadcast, they can get paid, based upon the job and where and how often it airs, because they'll get paid each and every time that happens. For non-broadcast, it's kind of a one and done. Now, all agents are not created equal. I mean, there are some agents that are specializing in specific genres. Now, I don't know of any agent that really specifies in an e-learning genre, but that's because why? It's non-broadcast. And it doesn't necessarily behoove them, right, to focus on that, because it's a one and done sort of thing. So the amount of money they're going to make on a non-broadcast job versus a broadcast where they're going to pay royalties, residuals, all that good stuff, is minimal. And now I won't say, though, that I do have an agent that I book a lot of corporate work. I mean, they're not going to say no, right?
Sure.
And I'm sure it's working with a company that also books broadcast style, commercials and that sort of thing. So they also I need a little internal training video, or I need a corporate video that's going to be on my YouTube channel. And so I will get those jobs from my agent as well. But, I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, it's not as exciting as if I booked a national commercial.
Sure. Yeah.
The money there is obviously much better there. So that is with agents, right? Let's discuss, let's discuss pay to plays, right? Because there's a lot of people who are like, oh, we should just direct market, right? What about how do I get opportunities? And a lot of people, when they first start out, want to talk about pay to plays. And so pay to plays, as their name suggests, right, is we are going to pay so that we can play or, get jobs and auditions. And so we pay a fee, and depending on the pay-to-play site, they have different business models. So you pay one fee for a particular amount of auditions or a particular level at this point. It used to just be one fee where, you're on the site and you get auditions. And now they've kind of really, diversified and have different levels, many of them. And so depending on the amount that you pay, you get a different amount of opportunities.
Or you get the opportunities at like a staggered time, depending. But yes, exactly. Like for all of these different companies, as you're saying, they all have a different business model. So really the question becomes like, are you willing to subscribe to that company's business model as they have it set forth? You don't have to. There are certain pay-to-play sites I'm not on because I don't agree or want to participate in that company's business model. It really then becomes a business decision for me and for my business. How can I best position myself to win? And if it means that I'm going to be, signed to a particular agent or on a certain rosters or pay-to-play sites or those kind of things, it really becomes a question for me of like, how do I want to position myself to have my business do the best that it possibly can? And that's going to change. Right. It might change that I change to a different tier at a pay-to-play site.
Sure.
Or I just no longer use that one at all.
Business models change. And that I have seen evolve through the years, because back in, I want to say about 2006, that's when I joined my first pay-to-play, which was Voice 123. And, they have since evolved and grown and changed their business model to now, have levels. But in the beginning, it used to just be one level. And you would set up your profile, and based on that profile and the things that you selected in that profile, you would get opportunities for the auditions, and you would get those jobs. And there was no, other than that one fee that they collected for the membership, they didn't collect any additional monies for that. And then I would say maybe a couple years later, another one. And well, I should say Voice123 was the first like official voiceover pay to play. Prior to that, there was like Freelancer, Odesk, and those were just, freelance type jobs that everybody would just bid on. And there was actually, at that point, there was a particular fee which was called an escrow fee, right? That you would pay the company if you wanted to make sure that you got paid. Because the biggest issue with freelance work or doing independent contract work, and especially when it's online, is not getting paid, right? And so as that evolved in the workplace, right, or online, it became a big thing. And so companies, and this is even before Voice123 and Voices.com, but they started to offer a service called escrow service where they would pay you and you would be assured that you would get paid. And then you would pay them a fee for that. And it was called an escrow fee. And so that was adopted early on by the freelance companies. And the thing about all the freelance companies is it became very popular, right, for freelancers to get work. And so this whole kind of what people today call the race to the bottom, right, underbidding, that's how everybody got their work a lot of those. And it just became this crazy kind of a model where, you would bid on something and then somebody would come in and bid a lower price and get the job. And so it became this mindset where it was like, well, I guess if I bid lower, then I'll be, I'll get the job. And I think that's what started with the pay to plays becoming people talking about them as being bottom feeders, right? Because people would start to underbid. It was very similar to the model of, freelance, Odesk, all those models in the beginning. And then I think after a few years, and actually not many, actually it was a few years, because for a while Voices.com and Voice123 were the only two in the game, and they competed with one another, and they both had one level. And I remember Voice123, because they were out first, were always, I think, what people considered to be the standard. And they had a lot more memberships. And then I think Voices.com started kind of playing around with how they would offer jobs. And so they, if I remember in the very beginning, were the first ones. I don't believe Voice123 ever offered anything like an escrow service. But Voices.com started to offer you could pay escrow so that you could make sure that you got paid, and then you would pay them a certain percentage of the fee. And that was prior to any of their managed jobs of today. And so that was always a choice. So you could choose to take your chances and, accept the job, and, that whole pay, they were hands off. Like if you got paid, you got paid. If you didn't, you didn't. They weren't really responsible. And then they offered the escrow, in which case they said, we'll pay you and you can be assured you'll get your money. And then ultimately, I think the competition started, happening once more pay to plays came about, like Bidalgo and there's a couple other ones, Voice Over Planet, et cetera, et cetera. And then the whole thing began, and of course it's always a point of contention with everybody out on the forums talking about, is it fair? Is it right for them to double dip or triple dip, especially with managed jobs? And, Danielle, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Double dipping, triple dipping. What are your thoughts on? Is it a thing? Is it, is it bad? Is it illegal? Is it good?
It's definitely a thing. And I go back to my stance of, this is the business model of the company that you are or are not choosing to do business with. If you don't agree with it, you don't have to participate in it.
Right.
Like, for example, for me, I am on Voice123. I'm not on Voices.com because I don't agree with their business model. So it is a thing. I don't know that it's illegal. I mean, where the law is saying that they can't do it.
Right.
But if you don't agree with it, then you can just take yourself and your dollars out of the equation, and anyone who does agree with it or wants to use that platform for their business model, they're free to do it. And I think also for me, when I look at agents or managers or pay to plays, it really is my business financially able to recoup the costs that I'm putting into, for example, the pay to play? Am I making enough money that the amount of money I'm spending, the tier that I'm on Voice 123, for example, is that a good return on my investment? I think that's the same thing for being with an agent, same thing for being on a pay to play site. This is a business expense. And does my business have the capacity to recoup the amount of money that I'm spending? Because I look at all of these relationships as a cost of doing business, and what is the return on investment? If I'm not booking enough and I'm not making enough money to cover, the amount in commission that I'm paying, for example,
right,
then maybe I need to go and look at how do I get my business to a place where the ROI will be positive. So really, I mean, you can agree with all of these different businesses or not, but really the question is, does your business have the ability to get a positive return on investment for the amount of money spent? Because it is a business expense when you are working with these companies.
Absolutely. And I think really I think bosses out there, the one thing to really think about is just, mind your own business and make your own decisions on whether
Absolutely.
you want to work with other businesses. And you can certainly get online and contribute to all the discussion and all the hype. And is it double dipping? Is it triple dipping? Is it right? Is it wrong? In reality, people get so up in arms about the state of pay to plays. But in reality, just let them do their business. And you're right. I am not part of pay to plays some pay to plays because I don't agree with their business ethics. So when managed jobs came about with voices, that's when I think really everybody started to say that there was double and triple dipping.
Sure.
And, I guess you can say that, but honestly, it's kind of like, well, I'm not gonna stress myself out over it. I'm just not going to use it if I don't agree with it. And managed jobs, if you think about it, and I want to talk to you about management companies too. Managed jobs is similar. If you think voices.com, they're charging a fee for your membership, and then in addition to that, if you decide to take a managed job, they're going to handle all the negotiation of the pricing. They're going to handle all the communication with the client. They're going to, handle all of that stuff on behalf of the client. And so there is a fee for that. And of course, one of the big things was, well, how much is that fee? But in reality, how much is that fee? And that is there regulation on that? There really isn't yet. And so, if you wanted to get into technicalities, have they done anything illegal, right? By charging a certain percentage for a management fee? No, not really. It's a business model. So if they decided to charge 50% management fee, well, that's their business model. And of course, that's a business model. As long as we know about it, we can agree or not agree to it, right? And a business model.
As long as we know about it.
As long as we know about it. And I do believe that any company that I do business with, and I'm pretty sure it's the same with you, Danielle, I want them to be transparent. And if I feel that a company or an organization has not been transparent with me, that's when I back off and I say, you know what, I have a choice here. I mean, goodness gracious, I didn't get out of the corporate world so that I could continue to, do things that I didn't want to do or invest in things that I didn't want to invest. I mean, this is why I am my own business, right? I make my decisions that are best for my business. And I can say, you know what? I don't need to subscribe to that. I don't need to be a part of that model or have that have them as my client. And so it's as simple as that. And I move on my merry way and I don't let it stress me out. But it's good to know if a company, like from the get-go, if I feel like they're not being transparent, then there's not much they can do to win back my trust. That's my personal, I don't know, Danielle, if you're the same way, but that's my personal take on things. If you lose my trust, years ago from the beginning, I don't know if you'll get me back.
I think it's also just about really making sure that you are an informed consumer because you are then the consumer and they are a business partner in a way.
Yeah.
So making sure that you are informed. If you aren't, asking the questions that you need to ask or don't partner with these people until you know the answers, or also try it. Try it out and see if it works for you, and if there is a positive ROI for trying it out or not.
Sure.
But for me, there are certain business partnerships that I just haven't entered into because I don't agree with the business model.
Yeah.
Now they can change. My business model has changed. They can change their business model. I mean, we saw like the different changes that have happened with pay to plays over the last several years. But if you don't agree to it,
Sure.
then you don't need to. There are so many other options.
Right.
That's a great thing, is that there's so many other options.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, that yes, the business model can change. Like our business models change too. And you're right. I'm glad you brought that up because it makes me think about, when you talk about transparency in a company, right? I had a personal relationship with, certain members in the community that owned businesses that I did business with. And so I think you're absolutely right. When it comes business to business, that's completely separate from, let's say, a personal relationship and maybe that trust issue that I might have had. Like, are they ethical? Are they running their company ethically? And do I believe that they're telling me? There's a lot of things out there, businesses out there that, they make promises. And, it's one of those things that I think you have to really sit down and do you believe, okay, we're not, we're going to do this. We're going to change our business model. And so is it something that you believe from that the company has integrity, that they have morals and ethics? And that, again, that's probably another podcast episode.
Maybe.
But that can have everything to do with. But, the fact is that many of the companies and the vendors that we work with have business models, and we choose whether or not to partner with them. So that brings me to, speaking of managed jobs, right? What about managers? And I will tell you right now, I do not work with a manager right now because the majority of my work is on the non-broadcast side, and I've always been very adept at getting my own work. And so I've not really felt like I've needed or maybe ever thought a manager would be something that would help my business, although I certainly don't discount it. But I know that you work with a manager, so let's talk about the financial aspect of management.
Yeah, so like you said, I do work with a management company, and it's a different business model than agents, like we talked about in the beginning of this episode. So agents, they're whatever that the job that they have booked you on, and they negotiate on your behalf, they're getting a percentage or a commission from that job. With management companies, and it really depends on which management company you're working with, but I'll just make a general statement. Really what they're wanting, that business model is more like managing your career, and they are getting a percentage of your entire book of business, as in everything that you have booked, with or without them actually being the ones who have negotiated it or presented that opportunity to you. And there's a financial implication to that as well, because you should look at, I think, for me, I look at what is my book of business outside of this relationship with this management company. So anything that I get on my own, anything that I get through my agents, what does that look like? And am I willing to participate in the relationship with a management company? And is the return on that investment high enough and positive so that I can continue doing what I'm doing and having the robust business that I'm hoping to have? For me, I look at that from a financial aspect every single month. And I am detailed with it because it's a business relationship.
Absolutely.
And is it worth it to me to have the access to the opportunities from this management company, along with the other things that I'm getting, with having the relationship with them, getting to speak to people who are incredibly knowledgeable, asking questions about things that I don't know? Like, is that relationship worth the amount of money spent on this commission of my entire book of business?
Now, I was just going to say, I think there might be some confusion as to what the responsibilities of a management company are, right? Do they take you by the hand, you personally, Danielle, and say, okay, here, we think you should work with this agency, or we're going to get you jobs, what is and I imagine that management companies like overall have a scope, or does each management company operate differently? Like, do you get personalized attention? Are they taking you by the hand and saying, here, Danielle, I think you should do this, and we're going to give you all these opportunities in this genre, etc.
I think for me, my mindset with working with a management company, working with an agent, at the end of the day, I look at it sort of like a pyramid or tiered. I am running the business. I am minding the business that pays me. I am running this business. And so I look at this as relationships, not necessarily that I'm abdicating my responsibilities of running the business that pays me to somebody else, and they can sort of take me by the hand and deal with it. I don't feel that is the business model that I am trying to run for myself. So I think that it's more about what are the relationships that can be made through the connection of being with this management company, not here just
what are they
take it,
doing for
whatever
you? Yeah,
whatever
exactly.
you wherever you send me, I will go. It's a partnership, and for me, I believe that the way that I can best create the business that I'm trying to create is to partner with people who are much more knowledgeable about certain genres or connections than I am, but I am a working participant in that relationship and not allowing someone to sort of take me wherever I need to go.
It's kind of like outsourcing. There's so many ways in which it's similar. It's like outsourcing because you want to be afforded opportunities that you may or may not be able to get on your own.
100%.
And that's what that's the fee that you are paying them. And is it similar? Like, I know a lot of people are like, but how are they different from an agency? Well, an agency is one agency that has relationships with clients, right? Or has relationships, maybe not relationships, but they establish relationships with clients to get job opportunities to then pass on to you. Management companies don't necessarily get specific custom, I would say, opportunities just for you, but they also develop they develop relationships and have opportunities that would be more broad, I would say broader spectrum than just your manager. Or your one agent, right? It could be multiple agents. It could be multiple business relationships. And those are the opportunities you are, quote unquote, paying a service fee for.
And hopefully the idea is that they can coexist and work together. So like the agent model can coexist and work with the management model so that it's not necessarily a replication.
Right.
It's sort of wherever one doesn't, it's almost the Venn diagram of it all. So there really should be sort of not necessarily just overlap, but an expansion of, well, this is what the agent does, and these are the types of jobs that I get through my agency, and this is what the management company does, and these are the type of jobs that I get through the management company. And also, I'm my own business too, so these are the jobs that I'm negotiating for myself and finding through pay-to-plays or through SEO or through just the auditions that I have, or my own marketing, word of mouth, those kinds of things. And so the idea is that all of these things are working together, and you are utilizing the business relationships for each business that you choose to partner with. And at that point, then you've built hopefully this robust business that isn't dependent on just one business model or one relationship.
And I love that you just narrowed it down to just relationships, because in reality, there's a lot of people that would say, like, well, I did all the work in getting that job. Why should I pay someone? Why should I do? And in reality, it's really all about the relationship, right? The better you can work with as a partner, and the more income that you can bring to them, the more they're going to try to bring to you. And I think that relationship is a cycle. One feeds the other. And
I like that you just said work with them, because a lot of people, I think sometimes, especially when you're wanting to get any sort of representation, agent, management, what have you, it's like they're you're working for them.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
doing things for them.
Or
It's
they
happening.
should do something for you.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
this is
It's not a
got to
one-way
be
street.
a partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, whether you're talking manager, you're talking agent, and maybe, I don't know, pay to plays. I'm not sure if you call that, I mean, a partnership, really, because I don't know if you call it a partnership exactly.
I think it's a tool. It can
It's
be
a
a
tool.
resource for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would definitely consider agents and managers to be relationship, partnership. Pay to plays are a slightly different model where, it's not, I wouldn't say it's as customized. It's about as customized as it can get by the algorithm that gets you the opportunities.
Yeah. And again, all of this is really about the business expense of it all, because
Sure.
all of this costs money.
Exactly.
So if your business is not in a place where this expense is bringing you a positive ROI, I would go back to training, making sure your demos are up to date, making sure that you are the person who's going to be able to book those jobs so that you would be able to pay these commissions and everything else. Because this really is about, are you... is the work coming? Are you able to book those
Sure.
jobs so that you can make the
Absolutely.
money to pay the commission to all of those
Exactly.
things?
It's like, and it's funny because I was thinking about that as it's, kind of the beginning of the month and I have to pay my my VAs. And, it's kind of like, gosh, it's almost like every month, boom, I pay them. And it's like this expense that I've gotten used to where it's like, oh, okay, there's my outgoing expenses. There's my, and I do it every month. And the funny thing is like, I think about myself, 20 some odd years ago when it would be like, oh my God, I can't afford to put this kind of money out every month for an assistant. And the funny thing is I do it without blinking right now. I pay my assistants on a monthly basis and boom. And immediately and so I've got that, I've got that cycle going where I'm getting a return on my investment. And so I have the money to be able to use that as an expense every month.
Absolutely.
So.
I was actually thinking the same thing because I very recently paid my assistant.
Right.
And
it's like automation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where I think about, and I'm so tuned into the financials of my business to the point that we're actually making our back-end system, that we use a completely separate back-end system, like a CRM system. And one of the things that was most important to me is that the reporting was dialed in because I want to know how much is coming in.
Yep.
And all of that is coming from work that has been booked.
Yes,
from me.
absolutely.
My relationships with the agents, managers, my own clients, all of those things. It has to have a positive ROI
Absolutely.
for me to be able to keep this business running.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Oh my gosh. I feel like we could have 5 episodes on that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. I cannot wait to talk to you on our next podcast. In the meantime, gonna big shout out for our sponsor, IPDTL. You too can connect and make money like bosses, like Danielle and myself. Find out more at IPDTL.com. You guys have an amazing week, and look at that ROI, and we will see you next week.
Have
Take
a good
care.
one, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.